All right. All right. So I am with Skeptical Mantis, also known as G.
Yep.
And what are we going to be talking about today?
Well, initially, I remember you wanted to talk about Bernie, why I think he's a sellout. Um, Also, you mentioned not liking Jimmy Dore, and I do like Jimmy Dore for certain reasons. So I want to understand more why you dislike him so much, and I'll tell you why I think you're wrong about
Okay.
that. Or who knows? Maybe you'll change my mind. Maybe I'll become a Jimmy Dore hater
Well,
after
I
this.
wouldn't say I'm a hater. I'm not a fan.
Okay.
You know.
Also, I guess maybe afterwards, after we talk about that, I wanted to ask you what you thought about gender abolition, um, and the possibility of a genderless society in the future.
That sounds
It's not
good.
some. It does sound very interesting,
Oh
and
yes. All right. All right. So yeah. So you came into my stream a couple. What was it, like a week ago or whatever? I don't care. I don't know. It was like Thursday or something, right?
hmm
Somewhere around there. And you triggered me, of course. You were posting for all intents and purposes. You were posting hate speech in the chat. Um.
totally.
So what do you think about Bernard? What is your contentious points of view on Grandpa Bernard?
All right. To be straightforward about Bernie, he has always tolerated imperialism throughout his career, especially after 2002. He stopped discussing the need to cut the military budget up to 50%. I believe Politico claimed that's the last time he called for the 50% cut of the US military. Even that, I would say, isn't enough, but at least that's pretty damn good. That would separate him from the rest of the imperialist politicians. I would say Bernie was a legitimate lesser evil. I would have voted for Bernie as a lesser evil.
Right?
However, he's not a revolutionary, though he loves to throw that word around when it suits him. He's not a socialist, in my opinion, not in a Marxist sense and not in a revolutionary sense. Um, he just wants to make capitalism a little bit better, in my opinion. He wanted to make the Democrats treat us a little bit nicer. That was really his whole goal, and honestly, he totally failed, even at that minor goal. I think he's a fraud.
Okay.
Can I
That
just
that
add,
yeah.
real quick, can
That's
I just add?
go for it.
Go ahead. All right. Um, Far left people, including Black Agenda Report. I don't know if you've ever read it. I think it's relatively prominent in certain circles. They've been calling Bernie a sheepdog for the Democrats even before 2016.
Okay.
I think his position has only gotten worse and less defensible after 2016 because instead of spending the last 4 years calling out the Democrats for cheating him and demanding that that never happen again and taking measures to make sure it never happened again. Instead, he went along with the whole Russia stole the election narrative, and that allowed the Democrats to distract from the fact that they're a completely piece of shit party that has nothing to offer.
Okay. All right. I mean, we're in agreement with a lot of that. I think we're mostly on the same page. I think. Yeah. I mean, Bernie's not perfect. I agree with that. He was definitely a lesser evil candidate, but I mean, I think personally, I'm more of like a doomer kind of at this point. I think we're looking at a situation where regardless of what's gonna happen, we're fucked, right?
hmm
And I think Bernie might have been able to prevent that, in the long term. Like we're like, maybe
I
30
think if
years or
Bernie
so.
was serious about his goals, he could have uh how would you say he could have softened the blow of how fucked we are, you know? Maybe we'll be a little bit less fucked if he was actually serious about his goals. But in my view, he wasn't even serious. And like I said, his refusal to call out the Democrats for cheating him in 2016 really showed it, like beyond any doubt. I think there's an argument to be made that he was cheated in 2016,
I agree
but
with that.
I think he was totally complicit this time around. Like he didn't even try to win. Like Biden is actually a worse candidate than Hillary, if that's even possible.
I agree and disagree on a lot of that. I think Biden is a better candidate on a personal level. I think Clinton is much more evil and nefarious. And I think Biden's just kind of dumb. So, well, I think Biden might be like a worse candidate to the right. I think he might not have as much of an agenda as a Clinton would. But either way, I think both primaries have been definitely not been legitimate. I see no evidence of legitimacy, especially in stuff like this election, like with Iowa, for example. That was a massive disaster, wasn't it?
I just don't see major changes coming through electoral politics in general, and I think Bernie drew the energy of a lot of angry people who were wanting to fight for change, and he drew all their energy into two failed campaigns, which were self sabotaged, not even failed, because to fail, you have to actually try in the first place. And I can't prove that it's like a conspiracy. I can't prove what was in Bernie's heart or what he wanted, but actions speak much louder than words. He's been sheepdogging for the Democrats at least since the 90s because your friend Jimmy Dore showed a video about how Bernie was calling for a rainbow coalition of like progressive politics outside of the Democrats until the 90s. And sometime in the early 90s, Bernie stepped away from that and he basically just became an ass kisser for the Democrats. And he's made a great career from it, right? I mean, at the end of the day, he's living a very comfortable life. Has he ever worked? Like, honestly?
Well, I'm not gonna go. I'm not leaning into those little fun games on the personal level. I don't know. He seems like a fun guy, personally.
I think the problem is people see Bernie as their old grandpa, and he's not. I mean, you even jokingly like referred to him as a grandpa,
Yeah,
but
I
I've
think
been
it's cute.
saying this about people for a while. Like, you treat. I said this about Jordan Sheraton, if you know who he is from Status Quo.
Yes, I know who he is.
He was flipping out a few months ago when I was calling Bernie a sellout in his chat, and
Okay.
he was flipping out at me. He was like, "What have you ever done? What have you ever done?" I'm
Oh
like,
my
"Yo,
god, dude,
dude,
that's a
Bernie is
good
not your
impression.
grandpa."
Do that again. Do that again.
No, no, that
That
was a
was
one-time
good.
thing. I
That
can't
was
do it
good though. I
again.
have to give that one to you. That was really good.
I'm under too much pressure. I can't do it
No, it's
again.
fine.
But
It's
yeah,
fine. You
like you
got it.
could look into. There was like a series of videos that Jordan made a few months, maybe 2, 3 months ago, where he there's a shit ton of dislikes. I mean, there's a lot of likes as well, but you could see that his own audience is split on it because a lot of them were hardcore Bernie supporters, and many of them have realized that Bernie kind of scammed them. Thing is, I never was a Bernie supporter, and that's like the main difference between me and those people. They're angry at Bernie because they feel that he sold them out.
Right?
I've been saying Bernie was a scumbag since even before
Whoa.
2016
Okay.
because he's an imperialist. And I don't want to throw these words around very lightly, like just call people scumbags for no reason. I really think he's a bad guy, even if maybe he's. I mean, how could you could say maybe he's naive, but I just don't see it, man. He made a career in politics for decades. He's not naive. He's complicit with U.S. imperialism. There's no other way to say it.
I mean, I do agree with that. I think it you'd be hard pressed to become a U.S. senator without having it at least 9 toes in the door on that one. So I mean, yeah, I can feel that. But I mean, I think Bernie's campaign has done overall a decent amount of job for progress and pushing like the conversation. Like you've got I'm sorry, I'm really high. Please excuse me. But
It's
like
okay, take your time.
you've got like 2018 midterms. You have a lot more of a progressive winners. You have the 2020 primaries outside of the presidential one that are looking very, very promising. Um, Now you said electoralism has failed. Now I mostly agree with that, but I still think that it's worth voting and it's worth just talking about it because this is the conversation. And so a lot of people's gateways to learning about politics is from electoralism. And so I think it's useful to talk about it because, like, if someone has a, primary challenge or beats someone in their district and they want to learn more about them, if they stumble upon a video of mine instead of, like, something from, like, CNN or NBC or something, they might, pick up on something more to the left, that kind of stuff. So I think contributing in electoral spheres, at least, from a social media standpoint, I think that that's worthwhile. Do I think the campaigning, like working for campaigns, is that worthwhile? I'm not sure. Honestly, I don't know if I'd ever work for a campaign again after Bernie.
I mean, earlier you said that to be a U.S. senator, you had to have 9 toes in the door.
Yeah?
Um, I think that's really the fundamental problem, especially again when it comes back to imperialism. That's something that I really try to focus on. And the reason is that, in my view, if we challenge and weaken and defeat imperialism somehow in the US, the entire economy will be forced to change. However, if you do it the other way around, like Bernie, focus on domestic issues and kind of ignore imperialism, it's actually very possible, I think. And tell me if what you think about this. They could possibly just create a strong social safety net, and that would actually strengthen the worldwide empire. If you look at the New Deal, that was part of the design of the New Deal. It was part of uniting white America
Right.
for World War II, right? That was
Right?
coming up. And it's not like they were psychics or they knew it was going to happen exactly, but I mean, there were rising empires trying to challenge the US, and a lot of these social safety nets can still exist with imperialism. And that's just not cool with me. That's something I'm not going to accept morally or politically. I think it's counter to socialism. And for that reason, Bernie kind of like disgraced the name of socialism, or he twisted it in a lot of ways.
Okay. Yeah, no, I think we're on the same board here. I just think our perspectives are different. Um, I think we agree with most of the substance here. Yeah.
I know that you seem to be very critical of Tulsi Gabbard as well.
Yeah. Are you a Tulsa?
No, I wouldn't say so.
Okay.
Um, I think that all of the legitimate criticisms that can be brought against Tulsi, and there are many,
Many can be
I think
gone
all those
against
same
Bernie too.
criticisms, right,
Yeah.
go against Bernie, but even worse because Bernie's actually been doing that same kind of stuff for decades. At least Tulsi, it was kind of like maybe she'll be kind of different. And I do think there were a few specific things that made her a little bit better than Bernie. I don't know if you would want me to list them.
Go for it. Feel free.
Things that come to mind is her explicit defense of Julian Assange, um,
That's useful.
her
Yep.
her statements on Venezuela being very anti-intervention. I think, right, didn't she meet with Bashar al-Assad and she was smeared for it? I think that's actually a good thing that she met with him. It doesn't make her like an Assad toady, as that
I can
lady
agree with that.
famously said. What else? There were just a handful of things like that. I mean, even in 2016, correct me if I'm wrong, she had a high position in the Bernie Sanders campaign. And when he sold out and endorsed Hillary, didn't she actually like stand up for the Bernie campaign more than Bernie? And that led to her losing her position.
I believe that's correct. Yes.
So
I attribute a lot of those positions to her like just kind of going for a specific I don't want to use the term grifting, but I don't know. Like there's a very clear in 2016. like given her age, given like her understanding of the future, right? You know, there's one option here if you want to have any sort of kind of standing in what's going to be going on, and like she's doing the long game. You know, that's what I'm trying to say.
Okay.
I think yeah, Tulsi's like very good at reading what the long game is, but I don't know. Like I think she overall has done not nearly as much as Bernie. I think even though Bernie is an imperialist, that is accurate. That is totally correct. Um, I think the sheer amount of people that have gotten into more left wing political thought in the last couple of years, I don't think nearly as many would be in into political thought if it weren't for Bernie's two political presidential campaigns. Do you agree or disagree with
Okay.
that?
Well, he's had more of an impact over a longer period of time. If that's what you're saying, I would agree with that. But I think that also goes for the negative aspects. He's had also a negative impact in certain ways for a longer period of time.
And what do you mean by that?
He's been sheepdogging for the Democrats way longer. So while he has gotten people into certain kind of progressive politics, at least some people, a lot of those people are still like Democrat Party lackeys or whatever. I don't want to use that kind of term, but basically people who say they like Bernie, they probably do like Bernie. I don't know what's in their minds, in their heart, but in the end, they're still going to vote loyally for Democrats. People who watch TYT loyally, Sam Cedar watchers,
Whoa.
Michael Brooks types, people who act like they're socialist and they're very tolerant of imperialism. And I just can't accept that. And I know we agree on that, but
Well, I think
they're
we're
like pseudo
throwing out a little
leftists.
bit. I think we're throwing a little bit, a bit of incendiary remarks here potentially. Um,
Mm, I just think anybody who is, I mean, yo, if they want to vote for Democrats, okay. But it's once they start insisting that others do it and that we're not being strategic or calling people the dumb left for not being as cowardly as them, I think that's just nonsense.
well,
And
do
like
you want
calling
to?
people privileged for not doing it, like that's just nonsense. Because most of the country doesn't vote. So like they're not all privileged. Like there's a reason they don't vote, and it's because Democrats don't offer anything of substance.
I can agree with that. You want to talk about like I think personally that it my strategy is to oppose a Biden presidency over a Trump presidency, so I will vote for Biden. I live in a swing state. That's my persuasion. But at the
Mm,
end all be all, I know that as far as I'm concerned, the presidency is just background noise. The more important stuff going
mhm,
on are street movements, protests, and organizing, and state elections are more important than the presidency in a lot of instances anyway. So, and then you obviously have the Supreme Court disaster. So, like, electoralism is kind of not going to have like we're not going to get a healthcare system for a long ass time, right? So, like,
mhm.
I'm fully aware of that, but I'm still going to vote for him because for me in my personal situation, it doesn't take that long. Um, just walk in, walk out. It's no biggie.
What do you think would be different? Like, what would be the main one or two things that would possibly be different in the next 4 years if Biden won compared to
Well, for me personally, they said that they would decriminalize marijuana. That's good enough for me.
Obama said he said we should decriminalize marijuana in 2006.
Yeah, no, I know. They can lie. I'm
That's actually
fully
one of the
aware.
reasons I voted for Obama when I was it was the first time I ever voted. I voted for Obama and that was one of the main reasons because there was a viral video of him as a senator saying that marijuana should be decriminalized and I was like, wow, this guy is like so far ahead of every other politician just on that basic statement. And yeah, it was a total lie.
My thing is, we're in a lot of a different position from 2007 or 2006 and 2020. Like, if Biden does lie about that, I mean, it's not going to go away as much as it would back then. There's a lot more people that are pressuring him. There's a lot more people that are organized against that. I'm fully expecting lies, to go on. I mean, they're the running for president, but I want.
it does seem that. Sorry,
No, I mean, I just
go
want.
ahead.
I think things are going to be slightly better, and that's good for me. Trump's been trying to take
So,
away healthcare protections for transgender people. That affects me directly. So,
mhm, okay, that's fair.
but at the same
I
time, like I know Biden is garbage. Like I mean, if you look at my channel back all the way to the primaries and stuff, I was shitting all over the guy. Um, I probably made at least 100 Biden videos during the primary. So like I agree with you, the guy's garbage, but like I don't know, like I'm not really into the whole hate everyone. I don't know. Maybe I am. Maybe I lean into that with Tulsi and Yang. I will say that those are kind of my pet projects. Tulsi and Yang people. I really just can't stand them to be honest with you. But um,
hmm. See, here's the thing. I was always against Bernie, but I always tried to be as nice as possible to his supporters. Same thing with Tulsi. Like, I mean, I thought she was okay. I thought she was overrated. I thought she wasn't gonna achieve much, but just her saying certain things that she said, I thought was very good. But in the end, I didn't think she was really gonna achieve much. She surprised me by the way she endorsed Biden when
yeah,
I don't think she had to.
yep.
I think that was unforgivable, honestly, and I make no
Yeah.
excuses for that. And going back to your friend Jimmy Dore, he interviewed her after that, and he admitted that she had no good answers, and he pretty much has been critical of her or just ignored her ever since then.
Well, I mean that's good. Like I don't. I'll be honest. I don't follow Jimmy Dore too often. All I know is I followed him a lot back in 2017 and 18. Well, not a lot. Like I didn't watch all of his episodes or whatever, but I'd click on maybe one video a day, in my little rotation of YouTube stuff. Um, and I liked that he would yell about things and be passionate, and that's what drew me into him. Um, but he never really had that much, like he never gave any solutions or strategies. I felt like I wasn't learning anything by watching him, and it was more of like a cathartic kind of thing, and that's not necessarily bad. But then I noticed whenever he would start doing things with strategies, then this was like a massive thing with the 2016 election. Was like he was like, an accelerationist kind of guy. Like Donald Trump's
Why do you
gonna,
say that?
like he was like Donald Trump's being president is gonna make everyone realize how bad things are, and then people are
Did that
gonna.
happen in any sense?
I think it did happen, but I also I don't see the merits of it. Like I don't see what we've gained as a result quite yet, and I'm not convinced it wouldn't have happened under our Clinton presidency.
Hmm.
Like I don't know if like the death and suffering is worth it. That's my kind of thing. And like from what I've
Hmm.
seen, Jimmy Dore seems to have kind of retained that thing, like just Democrat bashing without that much Republican bashing. Like I don't know, it just seems like kind of cathartic release for people, which is all well and good, but I don't know, like it's just yeah, Democrats are bad. I get it.
I agree about not learning from his show as much, especially when he doesn't have guests on and it's just him talking. I do think it's gotten repetitive, and he needs to have more guests on, especially far left people. I think he could learn a lot more, and his viewers could learn a lot more. But I think he's been fundamentally right on several major political questions, including the Democrats being trash. I mean, you say you agree, but you're gonna go vote for them, and that's okay as long as you're not going out
I'm
of your way to
willing
tell everybody to vote for them.
Yeah, I'm
But
willing to
like,
vote for people
this
I
is
don't
leaving us
like.
stuck. It's leaving us stuck in the same position where we do the same thing every 4 years. I'm telling people don't bother voting. I mean, do whatever you want, but I'm not going to bother voting. And I think it's a totally legitimate thing to do. Honestly, this is something I disagree with Jimmy Dore. I would even tell people, yo, don't even bother voting for third parties or state elections, honestly. Unless there's somebody really, really like exceptionally good. locally where you are, and I'm
If
not
I were
convinced that there
running in your
is.
district, would you vote for me?
Oh, definitely.
Oh,
But
really? Okay.
that's like a that's like a perfect scenario that hasn't
Right.
happened yet.
All right. But okay, so I'm going to move to your district. I'm going to run and then I'm going to get your vote and then we're going to go from there. No, but I
My
mean,
vote is gonna be the one that makes you win.
there you go. See? No, I mean, I agree with that. I just feel like if voting were so useless, they wouldn't try so hard to keep us from doing it. That's something I believe in.
They
Um,
wouldn't stop us from doing.
I mean, just look at the census stuff recently. Like, just the Supreme Court just decided that they can stop the census count early, and that's going to make it so that less people have as much voting rights and stuff, and like districts are redrawn, and people lose their democracy or whatever they want to call it, right? They do so much bullshit to keep people from voting. If it really did
Hmm.
nothing, I feel like that wouldn't be the case. Um,
Okay, I see what you're saying in terms of how they try to stop certain people from voting. But they also don't do much to get people to actually vote, right? Like the Democrats, Biden, all these people, they don't actually offer people anything. So, some people in the government try to stop certain people from voting, but then the Democrats also don't offer anything. So it's like they're working together. One is actively trying to stop people from voting, and one is just passively creating a situation where people won't vote.
that's actually very correct. That's why the racket is such a severe one. Is
If they
because
actually offered a few substantial things that could make people's lives better and give them real hope and actually back it up, I mean, voter disenfranchisement and all these voter ID laws and all this different stuff probably wouldn't be enough, in my opinion. I'm just guessing. I don't think it would even be enough to stop people from coming out in mass. Like, people would actually vote in mass if they had hope that something was
I
really going to
think
change.
the Democrats have been successfully purchased by big corporations. I think we can agree on that. I
Hmm.
think I think it's all a racket. I think they know what they're doing, and their strategy. Look at Biden's entire campaign. He was just, I'm not Trump. I'm going to beat Trump. I'm going to bring us back to normal. That was his whole campaign since he announced, and it's still his whole campaign,
Hmm.
right? So that's their thing, is they want to always be that reactive force to like be like the last stopgap from full fascism or whatever. That's like the comfortable position. They don't actually care about people. They're just in it for their
They just try
careers.
to they just try to make themselves seem 1% less fascist, and that's good enough. And again, for many people it is because even you're going to still vote for them. So it is good enough, right?
Well, I mean, I live in a swing state that Trump won last time and Biden could win. I view my thing as more of a vote against Trump than a vote for Biden.
I see. I mean, I get it. I see why Trump scares people. Yeah, he's terrible. I think a lot of these people are just voting out of fear, and I do get it. But I'm not going to be motivated by fear. And honestly, if I thought Biden was going to be even a little bit less fascist, then maybe I would vote for him. My thing is, I'm not an accelerationist. I actually think a legitimate lesser evil would be worth voting for, but I'm not convinced that the Democrats are actually a lesser evil because there may be a few little things where they're a little bit better or at least seem a little bit better, but there also could be things where they are worse. Like, I think they're 99% the same, and it's not clear to me which one is worse. Trump is just unmasking the system. That's really the problem a lot of people have with him. He's open about what he is. And in a way that's good. Didn't Malcolm X talk about damn, I forget what the hell he said. Something about like the wolf versus the sheep, whatever the hell it was.
Yes.
Something about wolf in sheep's clothing.
Yes.
So in a way, Trump is actually a little bit better than Biden, potentially. I'm not sure, and I wouldn't say vote for Trump either. I
Well,
just
let,
wouldn't
let me
vote.
let me throw this argument out there and let me see how you feel about this. So there's a whole generation of people that maybe didn't pay attention to politics or were on autopilot during Obama years. Like we're talking like teenagers, right? And then maybe for me personally, 2016 was my first election, right? But for a lot of people, even older people, like and a lot of people, because of the craziness of that campaign, that kind of started like a new kind of generational kickoff of political interest, right?
Are you referring to the Bernie campaign of
Well,
2016 or the
Bernie and
Obama
Trump.
campaign in 2008?
I'm talking about Bernie and Trump.
Okay, so you're saying that it radicalized people or it got them more involved?
More involved, yeah, and like younger people.
I
Like, because
agree.
we're in a situation where, like, I think Bernie got most of the votes with people under the age of 45, and that's not that young. But that would
Mhm.
include, like, the people that were young during Obama's ascension in 2008.
Mhm.
And then that would include, maybe some of them are, having parental or semi-parental influence on, very young voters. And then that's going into 2020 where we're having people that were 15 when Trump became president that are now able to vote or whatever. So like
Mhm.
there's a lot of people that are growing up in this new, much more radicalized generation, and now they can vote. I don't know. I think the
And if Biden wins, will that feeling of radicalization go away
I
for
don't think
some
so.
of those people?
I don't think so. That's my thing. Is I think like there wasn't enough force behind it because like when Obama was elected, it was just the young people, right? Like maybe like under I don't know. I don't know the demographics, but like
Probably young people and black people of all ages.
yeah, but it wasn't like enough. Most the majority of people were just like that's good enough for me, and then went away, and everyone else was like left like what's going on here? Wait, what? You know? Whereas like this time around, I feel like there's enough people to not just go away. Like I feel like protests aren't going to stop when Biden's president.
I think they might, at least they might decrease significantly because there is a significant section of liberal people who probably liked Bernie, but now they're going to eagerly vote for Biden. And if he wins, they'll be so relieved that they'll go back to their sense of fake normal, or at
You
least
think
try to,
so?
right?
Like people
They'll
that
go back to
protest?
brunch. Uh, some of them. Maybe not all of them. Definitely not all of them. But I don't know. I think it could lead to a type of confusion and a type of wait and see attitude where protests would die down for a while as
Well,
people would wait and see.
here's the thing. Like we know Trump isn't going to do anything. We've been protesting for months. Trump is not going to do anything. In fact, he's
Hmm.
making our life a living hell for even trying. So
Hmm.
if Biden,
And
we
hasn't Biden called for the suppression of these protests as well
absolutely
in his
right,
own way?
absolutely. But if you think like, oh,
Remember,
we no, I agree with
Obama
you.
sent cops to beat up Occupy Wall Street, right?
Absolutely. But that's the thing is we
And
have
people
this
took that.
generation of people that don't really remember that or were too young for that, and they're going to see how bad Democrats are. That's one thing. But then also there's this administration is going to try to pretend to care about people. And so wouldn't protesting under an administration that might care about you, like if at this point we've been protesting for 7 months or 8 months if Biden's president at this point, why stop now? Why not just have a sustained movement into a new presidency and see how a new administration handles it? That's my thing. Is like, I feel like a change of president would make the protests go even further.
Hmm.
Just because, like, you think, like, like, does anyone really think, oh, I'm going to go protest and Donald Trump's going to really get it? Like, no, that's not going to happen, right? We know that.
But is Biden ever going to get it?
Well, we don't
I
know.
don't
Like,
think
there's
so.
not enough people really know. Like, I might say I don't think so, and you might say you don't think so, but I don't think enough people know how bad Biden is or whatever to
Here's the
like. I
thing.
don't think so.
I feel that getting presidents or any politicians to get it or agree or sympathize with us isn't even the point at all. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't the Vietnam War draft, was ended under Nixon? Not because he got it or he was progressive, right? It's because he was kind of forced. It's like a political calculation. If a protest can disrupt society, disrupt capitalism, and disrupt business up to a certain point, that's leverage right there, right? We need different forms of leverage. And I think that's what we don't have right now as a movement. And a lot of protests are very well intentioned, but sometimes it doesn't amount to anything more than street theater. Sometimes, at least. And I'm not trying to like hate on protesters at all. And I've been to protests, especially during the George Floyd stuff and before. But sometimes, honestly, it feels kind of like I'm not sure if it was a waste of time.
Yeah, no, I feel it. Like you go out there and the energy is intense, and then like you go home and you just think like, well, tomorrow what's going to be different? Nothing. And
Hmm.
for me personally, what I advocate for is when people go to protest, you shouldn't go necessarily just to protest. You should go there to make friends. You should go there to, meet people. You should go there to like, organize with your community, like plan the next protest. You know what I mean? That should be the goal at a
Yeah,
protest, is to plan the next one. That way you always keep the ball rolling. That way there's always a way to pick up steam, you know?
I agree with you. It should be directed towards further organizing. But again, the question is what to organize because sometimes we just go from protest to protest. And if we're not disrupting society, I'm not sure what we're achieving. We need to look at different tactics of movements in the past and think how we can actually disrupt society. And I've been looking into the Black Panther Party for the last few years, different communist groups, basically insurgent groups, because I think we are going to need a revolution, a real revolution, not a fake Bernie revolution. And that's our only chance to have some kind of freedom and avoid extinction, avoid World War III, avoid climate change collapse, or at least lessen the blow, right? We might not even be able to avoid those things, but we need to lessen the blow. We need to be in a position to make our people's lives better. And we're not getting closer to that if Biden wins,
I don't think we're
in my
necessarily
view.
getting further away.
Okay. Uh, Maybe. That's why I'm saying I'm not sure if Trump or Biden is worse. And if I thought one of them was clearly worse, even if it was a little bit worse, then I might say, okay, I'll just vote for him and then, challenge the administration. But I don't think either one of them is clearly better or worse.
Yeah, I mean, I feel you. I feel you.
Mm.
I think we should just agree to
You're a Second
disagree on
Amendment
this stuff.
supporter, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. I don't personally
Okay.
own guns, but I think gun rights are important for leftists.
Hmm. Agreed. Did you see the Not Fucking Around coalition when they were somewhere in the
I
South
have
protesting white
in
supremacists?
Georgia and South Carolina, I believe, and
Yeah, they've been in a few places, and they're not the only black militia
Kentucky, I
either.
think.
I would be very interested in seeing these kind of things pop up everywhere. The cops are too cowardly to do shit to them, right? They love beating up protesters that are empty-handed, but they don't want to beat up people who have guns. Um, Cops are just cowards, typical bullies. I would say that a peaceful armed protest can actually have more of an effect than a lot of these other protests, potentially.
Um, I can agree with that. I mean, it's definitely a worthwhile experiment. Look at how they treated people during the Liberate Michigan bullshit.
Right, the cops did nothing to those people. There's always been a double standard about politics and guns, who has them, who's okay to have them, and who's not.
I mean, you look at California's origin of gun restriction is related to like, oh no, the black people are having guns. We got to ban this shit. That was their like kind of pretense.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I see the Democrats are totally all about that, including the ones who pretend to be progressive. I mean, I'm pretty sure Bernie supports gun rights in Vermont, right? But he supports gun control. Correct me if I'm wrong about this. He supports gun control in cities.
I don't know what his specific plan was, but I
I
know
mean,
he was
I can
more
say
in
with
favor of gun rights than most than Democrats.
I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure his support of gun rights is specifically for Vermont.
Okay.
And I think it's hypocritical. It's just he's going along with the same old thing. They want us disarmed. They want the oppressed communities disarmed. I think building a militia or some organization like that with a political outlook that can serve people's needs on a day-to-day basis would actually be more valuable than many of these protests potentially. And again, I
That
don't
those
want to shit
last
on the
two
protest.
things that you said are the most important. The ability to like help people with what they need and to build community self-sufficiency to where you don't need to rely on places like grocery stores for your food. Like maybe you've got maybe you live in a rural town and then you like trade each other for like farming stuff. Like there's a lot of options there for community self-sufficiency and mutual aid, right? And what once you like
Potentially.
yeah, like and once people start being self-sufficient and not needing to rely on a government, not needing to rely on those kinds of systems, and then, like you could build from there, like I think that's something to look forward to as well.
The thing is that if you look at the history of the Black Panther Party and groups that emulated them, like the American Indian Movement, the Young Lords Party, um, when these groups did successfully develop community organizations, the cops sabotaged them in every way possible. Like there was nothing that the cops weren't willing to do, from anything from spreading rumors. I know that they used to spread rumors that the food was poisoned in the Black Panther uh, breakfast program, and that successfully lowered how many people attended at certain times. I also remember reading about how the police spread rumors that the Black Panthers were sexually inappropriate with the young girls in the breakfast program. That was also completely a lie that they made up. There was nothing that they were nothing that was below them or like too fucked up for the cops to try to do. Like they really waged war on these groups. And even on a smaller level, like not a group like the Black Panthers, let's just look at something more modern. I do remember seeing this thing. It was called I think it was called like the brown bag movement or something like that. They were giving out brown bags full of food to people
Right?
in the streets, and the cops actually, is that the name of it? You know what I'm talking about?
I know what you're talking about. I'm not sure if that's the name, but I know what you're referring to.
Yeah, it was like some kind of food program for people, and cops actually came, shut it down, and I think they fined the people that were like doing it.
Yeah, for
So,
like not having a permit or whatever the fuck.
right. I
Yeah,
mean,
no,
cops
I
want
mean,
us to be
cops
dependent on
are.
the state.
Yeah, no, that is absolutely correct, and that's why in a lot of ways, a lot of these things, the more underground and decentralized they can be, the better. Um, but I mean, also with like that's where like things like being armed could come into play. You know,
Right.
like you could have those like scenarios and you see like somewhat semi examples happen in like Seattle, for a couple of weeks, and that was like, for a little bit that was an interesting thing to watch to see what would happen. um you see all these kinds of like in Minneapolis, for example, there were several weeks where in Minneapolis activists were able to house homeless people in a hotel for a couple weeks instead of having them
Hmm.
be on the streets, and that was profound, and that kind of like blatant, um, like just direct helping people, and it's like, yeah, no cops should be in this jurisdiction because if they come, they're gonna make people go live on the street. That's reprehensible. So like that kind of thing. And I don't think that that's still the case now, unfortunately. But that kind of thing
I think
is
there were also a few like encampments of homeless people mixed with activists where they were kind of like providing food and stuff like that, like providing safety in numbers, many things like that. I think there was one in Philly. I know there was one in New York City, Abolition Park. They camped out in front of City Hall.
right.
Um, and the cops broke that up violently and threw away all their stuff, at least in City Hall, New York City. I don't know about the Philadelphia one.
I think they actually did the Philadelphia uh, camp clear like I think a
Yeah,
couple
they
weeks ago. But that was up there for a while, I believe. Yeah,
right.
that's the thing is
So
the cops will go after it in due time. But if you build the bonds and it's like, okay, maybe don't we don't have the camp here in the middle of the park. Maybe now we go a little bit more underground for a while. We figure things out and maybe in a couple months we stage another demo and then we're more prepared. Then we have more people and like, that kind of stuff. Like it's all about kind of building those connections and I do see and I do think that those connections are being built in these communities. Like I think people
mm,
are meeting new people. You see, like Cory Bush, for example, won a primary in Missouri, who was an activist that came out of the Ferguson situation. Um,
mhm.
so like that kind of elevation of people, I think that that's going to be a pretty big deal. Um, Going forward, it's just the kind of, especially with social media. Now things are you're able to spread info so quickly. People can like, you can tweet something and then have thousands of people show up to a protest. Like that's incredible.
You're right. Mm. I'm just thinking that you're right that these movements and these bonds between people and communities are developing, but at the same time they're also being subverted and broken down. It's like an up and down, kind of like a roller coaster, because like these organizations come together, but then keeping them together for years and even decades that it would take to like really achieve something significant, and especially to achieve a revolution, like that hasn't really been able to happen. The Black Panther Party only existed for a few years before it was split through government subversion, and then it was split into a few different splinter groups, and they were never as significant after the split. Um, and the cops have just been very much a decisive factor. I would put it that way. When we talk about the civil rights era, the Black Power era, all these different political movements, it's very rare, even among progressives, to discuss police as the decisive factor, or at least one of the main decisive factors. Like, we need to see the defeat of these movements as military defeats, especially when it comes to the Black Panther Party. They were sometimes literally assassinated. War was waged on them. Like, that's not hyperbole.
Yeah,
That's
I can agree
like
with that.
exactly what they did. And somebody like Bernie, somebody like Cory Bush, all these Democrat Party hacks, they're not going to be there for us with the war. Quite the opposite. I mean, they're going to be probably playing the middle, but ultimately supporting the cops. That's what they're about. Even
Well, I
people
I
like,
wouldn't throw Cory Bush under the bus that quickly. She's not even in office yet.
I mean, I guess I'm basing my criticism on these squad people, AOC, the capitulation to Nancy Pelosi. They wouldn't get far if they didn't have nine toes in the door. That's what you said before, and I agree with that. And if they didn't have nine toes in the door when they got there, they will after they've been in there for a few weeks, a few months. Like, look at AOC. She switched up so fast.
So you're
I
anti
think this.
AOC?
I had some hope for her, though. Her affiliation with Bernie made me think that she was probably just another fraud, and I think that was true. I wanted her to be better than Bernie. Some of the things she said before she won were actually, I think, to the left of Bernie. I mean, if I remember correctly, AOC made her like big debut on the Jimmy Dore show. And then after that, she never talked to him again. She shunned him because she became a Democrat Party hack. The way I see it, especially in a place like New York City, They use the carrot and the stick with all these politicians. I don't know what was in AOC's heart when she ran. I want to think that it was probably like her wanting to do good for the people. But when somebody wins a position like that in a city like New York, the cops, everybody in charge, basically the Zionist mafias, all these different, real estate international mafias that control these big cities will basically intimidate these elected officials and then also offer them a career at the same time. In Spanish, there's a term, plata o plomo. Yeah, that's how you say it, right? Plata o plomo, right? It's like take the money or take the lead, right? It's a carrot
Whoa.
and the stick. And that's how everything is done. You either work with us or we kill you or threaten you in some other way, right?
So
They they
you
don't have
think
to kill them.
do you think AOC's like, got a gun to her head at this point? Like being in now she's won her primary, right? Like do you think she's owned at this point?
I think she's owned. I think she was probably under threat at some moment when it wasn't clear if she could be controlled, but now it's clear that she's controlled and it's all good. She's going to make a career. She'll never work as a waitress again. She's rich. Or she may not be rich right now, but with all those connections, that social capital, she will be rich. She's done what she has to do to be in that position. So
That's a
yeah, I
fair
don't have any
point.
hope for her.
That's a fair point. I mean, I wouldn't dismiss her. I mean, my thing is I don't put faith in like these politicians are going to save us, you know? Like Bernie was probably the best. Like AOC's not going to save us. Like she's one person out of 435, right? But like Bernie was kind of oh, they dropped out of the call. Dropped out of the call. Come on, man. Hopefully y'all are enjoying the conversation. I think it's going well. I'm not sure if this is the end of the conversation. It looks like it might be the end. Well, hopefully y'all enjoyed the app. Um, I'm gonna go chill. We'll reconvene at some later point in time. Wait, wait, hold up. They responding via text. Hella ox. Hella ox.
I was just
Hello?
talking and then it was just
Hey.
silent. I was like, "You still
Yeah.
there?"
No, you dropped out like fucking couple minutes ago. Like three minutes ago?
I tried to answer your last question about AOC being bought, and then when I
Right.
finished talking, I was just like, there was no big.
Yeah, that was really weird. But yeah, I mean,
What's the last thing you heard me say?
I don't remember to be honest. It was a long time ago.
Okay. Okay.
Um, but yeah, like I don't know, like I think they're interesting politicians to follow. I don't know if you have to like really hate on them. I feel like certain politicians like I guess you just feel like Bernie and AOC are like they're all just not working for us in any capacity. Cuz I would say Tulsi is probably not doing much. Like outside of like the Assange stuff, like she's relatively useless. Um
She's just as useless as all the others, but no worse. And to me, I have a problem with many Bernie supporters who I think employ double standards against Tulsi. I thought it was really hypocritical. I'm not saying you are, but
Are you calling me out?
that's if the shoe fits. I'm
It
not sure if it
really. So this is a
fits.
call out post. It's official. It's official. This
But do you see
discussion
what I'm
has turned
saying
into
though?
a vicious debate.
Yep, a vicious attack. I mean, I think we agreed earlier that all the criticisms brought against her can also be brought against Bernie. But a lot of Bernie supporters didn't see it that way, and I thought that was just absurd.
I think
Like, this
Bernie.
Michael Brooks character.
What?
Michael Brooks.
I love Michael Brooks. He's great.
He was great, supposedly. Whatever. I didn't like him, but
Ah, we all have agreements and disagreements with various individuals.
if I remember correctly, Michael Brooks once was a bit too honest on his show. He said, "We're not here to be fair to anyone who's not Bernie." And I think that just unmasked him as a total, like, just like a team player in the worst possible way.
But I think if you're gonna be a team player, Bernie was the right team to play for. That was my calculation. I think if you were like Bernie was had always had a path to victory. It was slim, but Yang didn't have a path to victory. Tulsi didn't have a path to victory. Warren maybe, but like ugh, right? Like
Mhm.
I think Bernie had the best possible way of gaining any momentum or stark momentum for leftist power in this country. So if you're gonna be on a team, I think Bernie was the right team.
I think Bernie had just as much chance of winning as Tulsi, and that's almost zero. And that's
What, the
why the best
primary?
thing he could have done is just tell the truth. And that's one thing Bernie refused to do on some important questions. He refused to criticize Obama, the imperialist, right? He praised Obama. He refused to tell the truth on certain very vital questions, and that just made Bernie
Well, that
useless.
made him. I don't know if that made him useless. That made him disappointing for people of our persuasion. Yeah, but like I don't know. I think it made him. I think it may have broadened his outreach. Like I think Bernie knows. I would say Bernie's calculation is that there are going to be people to the left of him that great, they're to the left of him. That means they're already good. Like they're on our side, they're on the good side. But he understands that there's going to be people to the right of him, right? That could be brought further to the left if they get involved with like, oh well, Bernie isn't. Like the people that say Bernie's not a real Democrat, and then they see, well, Bernie actually said he likes Obama. Like those, and then they would maybe listen to Bernie some more, right? Let's
I
say
think anybody who still liked Obama after 8 years doesn't know what the fuck is going on in the US or in the world, honestly.
I agree with you, but I mean they're out there. You'd be surprised. They're out there. I did
Like,
canvassing work for Bernie Sanders. I've met a lot of Obama fans. They're out there. They're in the wild.
they are out there, but they are not informed. They're not politically active, mostly, I'd say. Um, why not try to move those people to the left on the basis of truth instead of trying to meet them halfway on the basis of falsehood? Because that's what Bernie tried to do. He tried to cater to these centrist type of people by refusing to tell the truth, right? That's how he tried to get on their good side.
Well, what is the truth in this instance?
The truth is that Obama was a complete imperialist. His hoping change was a complete lie, and he was just as bad as Bush. And Trump is just continuing a lot of what Obama did, including all of the crazy attacks against immigrants, right? That really ramped up under Obama, right? Trump didn't invent that. Obama laid the ground for Trump. And now I sound like I'm reciting a freaking Jimmy Dore like monologue or rant.
Well, it's not
But
wrong.
honestly, that's why people love him. Yeah, because he's saying the right thing on these big questions.
Yeah, I mean, well,
Bernie refused to say all those things.
I say some right stuff, and I wish I had the audience that Jimmy Dore has. But that's just me.
I mean, his audience was much smaller until he started criticizing Bernie from the left and criticizing the Democrats hardcore. That's when his audience really grew, if I remember correctly. I've been watching him for a few years.
I don't know. My thing was always about strategy. If you were criticizing Bernie during the primary, I don't see what the benefit was. Like, if you want to have these theoretical conversations, like, and at the end of the day, you still say, like, Bernie, you're going to vote for him or whatever, then that's fine. But, like, people that would say, like, I'm not going to vote for Bernie, I'm going to vote for Tulsi because Tulsi's to the left, or, like, any of these outlandish claims, in my opinion, that are outlandish. Um, like, I don't know. Like, yeah, Bernie wasn't a perfect person, but he was the, I think, best chance we had. I don't think Tulsi had any. She was never polling like anywhere above like 5% outside of like New Hampshire.
They both had close to zero chance.
I
And that's
disagree.
because it was designed to make people like that lose. And Bernie played along knowing he'd lose. I'm speculating, of course, but I think it's pretty. I don't want to repeat myself. I think I've already said what I have to say about Bernie.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not convinced he knew he was going to lose. I'm convinced he knew it was likely he was going to lose, but I'm not convinced that he knew it would happen. And I am convinced that they took it from him illegitimately, and it was also like even if you don't want to have the conspiratorial, like, where are the missing ballots in Texas kind of thing, if you don't want to go down that road, that's fine. But like at the same time, it was scummy, so openly and brazenly, everyone dropping out and endorsing Biden in like a 24-hour period. That is the scummiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my life as far as political fucking displays. You know what I mean? Like that's just
Mm.
I don't know. Like, I think most people see that. I don't think it's hidden. I don't think Bernie needs to signal that people fucked him over. Like, I don't think Bernie's planning to run again. I think
I
Bernie's
mean,
just comfortable where he is.
he should have been spending 4 years after he got cheated in 2016 exposing how fraudulent the elections are, and that could have maybe given him a chance to have a sort of fair election in 2020, sort of, at least maybe. And that's because people would have been so hyper aware of how like illegitimate the last election was. He did not do that. You could argue if Hillary would have ended up winning, you could have argued that Bernie did the right thing, right? At least some people would have made that argument. But he supported the ones who cheated him, and then they still lost. So, like,
Well,
he
I don't
really
think
got
that has
nothing out of
any.
that.
I mean, yeah, they lost, but that was on them. Like, I think if you're saying that Bernie would have maybe looked like he had done the right thing if Hillary had won, then I think his calculation was correct. He hedged his bets. He wanted the best case scenario for what he thought. And I don't disagree. I voted for Jill Stein personally, but I don't disagree that hedge your bets for Hillary and then try to help under a Hillary administration. That's what he's doing now.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, it's
Do
been
you
about an
want
hour.
to move on? Yeah.
Yeah, let's you wanted to touch on something less about political like people. Let's do like 10 minutes or so on like you wanted to do living in a post-gender world.
Yeah, I was just wondering your thoughts on that because, like, I've seen this stuff about gender neutral preschools in certain places. I think it's fascinating. Uh, Great experiment. I think it's hard to deny that we'd be totally different people if we were raised in a gender neutral society, or at the very least, been introduced to this gender neutral concept as little kids. Like, we would be very different people, most of us. And I guess from the point of view of a trans person, you, right? I guess I'm wondering how gender abolition fits in your worldview because correct me if I'm wrong, I'm no expert on this, but right, trans people feel that they are a certain gender, like objectively, right?
Right?
Or like they feel very attached to one certain gender and they take steps to fit that gender for society and be accepted and
Sure.
all that. But I guess if gender was fluid enough where social changes could kind of eliminate gender, I don't know, would you feel okay? Like, I don't know, would you still be a trans person?
Well, I mean, I think living in a post-gender society, I don't think that's going to happen in our lifetimes.
I agree.
So,
Yeah,
like,
this is very speculative.
that's something that I think it's just going to be a situation where you may see that there are less and less people that do certain things to fulfill their gender identity. You know, like they're like I think it's just going to see a natural phase of differences in how people identify. Um,
A natural phase of differences.
yeah, like I'm sorry that doesn't. Yeah, that might have been a little big brain. I'm really high, so bear with me. Um,
I kind of think I know what you're
Yeah, but like I
implying.
think like maybe over the course of several generations you just see people don't do specific things to transition a certain way and they do something else because of different social norms. Like let's say in 20 to 35, like there is no such thing as male or female anymore, right? That's theoretical. Like, kids of kids
Mhm.
of kids of kids of kids just like outgrowing it at the pace that they have been now. It's theoretical that we could get to a point where people are born like in, you saying here a neutral preschool, and if like say everyone at some point in 200 years from now was born in a neutral gender preschool. Well, I mean, at that point, if that goes on for generations, I mean, I don't know, could lead a certain way.
I, I think masculinity and femininity would become weaker and weaker, and people would stop feeling pressured to like fulfill those norms, and then eventually it would probably stop influencing people altogether.
I'd say I agree. It might take a while, but I'd say I agree. I'm
Sure.
on the same page there.
Hmm. Thing is, I feel that I've been indoctrinated,
Uh oh.
but it's like so strong. I'm indoctrinated to be a man. I'm very manly. Not trying to toot my own horn or anything. It's
Right,
not
right.
even a good thing. It's not even really
No, being
necessarily a
no
good
men are
thing.
terrible. We need to get rid of
Oh,
them.
men are the worst. You gotta
I'm glad
eliminate
you're on
men.
the right side of history here.
It's like logically, I know, yes, men are very bad. Um, but yeah, like it's so deeply ingrained in me, and also how others perceive me that it's impossible for me not to be a man, I think. Or maybe not impossible. I don't know.
No, I understand. It's just the way society is. But like I think over the course of I mean, 200 years ago, people couldn't even perceive a society in where people of different races were equal under the law, you know?
Hmm.
Or like where women could vote or women could have any rights whatsoever. And
Hmm.
now women are having rights. Women can do whatever they want in a lot of instances. Women can sue for divorce and win. Who would have thought about that 200 years ago, right?
Hmm.
So, I mean, I think that the breakdown of these kinds of barriers I think they're going to come. And especially if something like the United States collapses, or if, like, there's a big, like, societal reset, I think stuff like that could definitely create a situation where gender abolition happens. And I don't think there's really any downside of that. I don't see where the downside is in that situation. I know a lot of people would say, "Oh no," but I mean, I think that those are people that don't even agree that trans people even exist. So I think that we could just ignore them. But
Hmm. I think we'd be more free to be real people
yeah,
and not
definitely
play
would
a
free up a
character.
lot of mental capacity, right?
Hmm. Have you ever encountered trans people who are like very against gender abolition because they feel that it challenges their like true gender?
Not really.
Hmm.
Like I've seen of people saying that kind of stuff, but I've never had conversations with them.
Yeah, I've encountered it online. I wasn't sure how you were gonna feel about it. Yeah.
I mean, I can understand that position, but I just don't agree.
Okay. I I've only thought a little bit about this topic, but it's something that, to be honest, I want to tell you, I've never really spoken to a trans person like in depth like this
Okay.
ever.
Well, it's the
Even though I
first
live
for
in a
everything.
very, I live in a progressive city. I mean, I've encountered trans people, a lot of queer people, but
The trans encounter.
I've never really just like, I don't know, had a chance. I'm not in those circles, and I'm a very manly man, so
Well,
I don't know.
I'm going to have to request, first of all, that you stop eating meat and start exclusively eating soy. And in about 6 months, hopefully, we can get you on maybe a plan of some sorts.
I do drink a lot of soy milk, but I don't feel like it's helped, to be honest. I'm not any more sensitive. I
Really?
don't think so. Maybe I haven't noticed. Well, can I ask you about HRT?
Sure.
Do you feel that I mean, maybe you've already covered this in videos. If so, just point me to the video and you don't have to repeat yourself. But I'm wondering, do you feel like it psychologically like changed your personality somehow, like in a chemical way, like where you felt like more something, more compassionate or more angry or more something?
No, I don't think it was any like profound changes. It was just certain things were more embellished in my personality. Like I felt more free to do certain things and more capable of doing certain things than I previously did.
Hmm.
But I just made a video a couple days ago, actually yesterday, on this subject.
I saw it, but I didn't get to watch it. That's why it came into my
Right.
mind.
Well, I mean, you can just go watch that. That'll probably give you more perspective.
Sounds good. I will watch that. I'm interested in it and just that whole process. It's very interesting. Will you take HRT forever or do you eventually stop?
I don't know.
Or like what do people normally do? Do they normally just take it forever?
There's a lot of different options. I could, switch to things like implants or um, that would like do like automatic, like there's those things where you just kind of get it in your arm or something, and it like puts out the specific amount of thing. But that would still be doing that. You could get like surgeries and stuff like that, but that sounds scary and it also costs a lot of money. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, I mean, presumably, at least until it starts interfering with my health negatively.
Okay, cool. I'm gonna check out your HRT video.
There you go. There you go.
So,
So
is
let's
there any
yeah. Do you
last
have
thought?
anything you want to say before the video's over?
Mm, this was a cool talk. I appreciate you inviting me on, and maybe one day we could talk again.
For sure. And you're welcome to pop into any of my streams and ask bizarre questions. That's totally acceptable.
Okay, I'll try to make it as bizarre as possible.
That would be perfect. The bizarrer the better, I say. But
All right,
all right.
cool.
Thank you. I'll see you later.
Thanks for talking. Take care.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye. Good stuff.